Mom, just one more thing from the store, please. Mom, can we think about tomorrow, please? Mom, just please, just 10 minutes. Mom, I'm not that hungry today. Mom,
Hello.
I don't really want to go.
Hello, comadre.
Hey, comadre.
Hola Comadres, welcome to another episode of Comadreando podcast. I'm your host Marcy, and today we have a phenomenal guest. His name's Al Lorem, and I'm going to let him introduce himself. Who are you?
Who am I? As Marcy said, my name is Al Lorem, and I have written a book, Martial Arts on the Autism Spectrum, Practical Tips from 3 decades of training kids and adults. And I'm a martial arts teacher in Marin County, California. I have a practice here, and I've been teaching for over 30 years, martial arts, also Tai Chi, but martial arts to kids, teens, and adults on the spectrum. And I have a full practice in that area. I work with schools, centers, organizations, and I have private clients. I get referrals from occupational therapists, doctors, physical therapists, and I teach is mainstream and autism and other neurodivergent students on a daily basis. And I have for, like I said, I got started in it 30 years ago, 1991, 92. And my practice in that area has just evolved over 3 decades. And now I'm pretty well known in my area for doing that and have a abundance of classes and work and private clients that I teach, like I said, on a regular basis, on a daily basis.
I love that. So as you guessed it, comadres, I like to first give them like how we connected. So Al submitted a inquiry via our website. And when I saw the topic and the fact that he's been working with children on the spectrum for so many years, I was like, wow, this is amazing. So I decided to bring him on the show. So today's topic is using martial arts as a therapy for children on the spectrum. And the reason why the topic came up is that as parents of children on the spectrum, we're always looking for some type of activity that's going to help our children achieve more and do better, and also help give them tools to self-regulate. So we're going to get more into the topic. So you said that your profession is basically martial arts, teaching martial arts. Tell me about your childhood. Like when was that moment that made you pursue martial arts to study for yourself? And then what made you decide to become a teacher eventually?
Well, great questions. First of all, my childhood, I grew up in Connecticut in a city called New Britain, which is in the central part of the state. And when I was growing up, I was a kid in the 60s, in the 1960s. So martial arts was not really widespread or well known. It was very still really in its infancy at that time. And how I got interested is I was watching on TV. They had from China the dubbed kung fu movies, and I go, wow, that's pretty cool, because there really weren't any. It was even prior to Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris, and that's going way back. And not that I'm that old, but I'm not that young anymore either. And so it always kind of piqued my interest, but there was really at that time when I was, say 10, 12 years old, no places, no schools, no dojos available because, like I said, it was not very much in its infancy and not widespread. So I kind of kept it on the back burner of my brain, and I go, this is really cool, and I would like to learn this someday. I've always been extremely athletic. I played organized sports, football, basketball, lacrosse, and I played lacrosse at a very high level in college. So I've always been, moving my body since day one. And so when I graduated college, which I went to American University in Washington, D.C. When I graduated college, I go, is this the end of my movement and athletic career? Well, turns out it wasn't, because my senior year in college, I needed a extra, I guess, from memory, like a half a credit. And I took a Taekwondo course to round out my schedule my last semester of my senior year. And because I'd completed all my requirements for my major. And so I go, well, this is pretty cool.
Wow.
And I really enjoyed it. And then I graduated. I moved from Washington, D.C. to Dade County in Florida, Miami, Florida. And I met a teacher who was teaching out of his house, who was a neighbor of mine, just happened to be a neighbor. I went over and approached him and said, would I be able to take classes from you? I'm really interested in martial arts. And that's where my journey began. And that was the start of, here I am now with a 30-year career and doing this full time for 30 years in a very full practice of teaching. And that's how I got into it.
That is so awesome. You brought me back when you talked about the kung fu movies, because my dad was a movie buff, and growing up here in New York, he would always purchase, or we would either rent or purchase like the I'm dating myself, VCR
Right.
cassettes. So we would watch all the kung fu movies that were coming out of China, and the dubbing was like so. It was very interesting. But one of my favorite movies was Born Invincible. I don't know if you ever watched that one. But when I saw like the Kung Fu school and how disciplined they were and how they were like all working together, and basically like it wasn't very individualistic, I've always found that very interesting and very, I don't know, like it just spoke to me in that way. But yeah, like I practice yin yoga, which is kind of looks like Tai Chi when you're practicing, but it's so that's so awesome. So what made you decide to become a teacher? Like once you studied, how long did you study before you decided to teach yourself?
Let's see. So I was probably training for, I would say, a good 10 to 12 years, 10 years before I decided. And I never really thought in my mind that I would be doing this for my livelihood. Like I said, I went to college. I was in the corporate world. I had some good jobs, but my head was somewhat into it, but my heart and passion were never really there. I always felt like a fish out of water or a square peg in a round hole. And it just wasn't me, wasn't my personality, wasn't who I was. And I felt I had something more to offer of who I was. I wasn't sure what it was at the time. And then I had a conversation with this gentleman, and he said, Al, you should consider teaching. And I go, me? Teach? Really? He said, yeah. He goes, you may not feel like a teacher, but you know more than most in that area. And I started to contemplate that. And I mean, seriously contemplate that, because I wasn't really happy in the corporate world and doing what I was doing. I was in corporate media sales, and I really started to entertain it more and give it more thought and more energy. And eventually I said, I got to make the move. If I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. And it was a big leap of faith and big jump for me, because I didn't have any students. I didn't really have a place where I was going to teach at the time. I didn't really know how I was going to formulate my action, my plan. But my wife of 30 years, I was dating. We weren't married at the time. I was dating her, and she was a big part of my success as far as getting it off the ground. And we would go out on a date on a Saturday night. And back then the internet was just maybe coming into existence in 90, 91. And we'd go out and we'd have dinner
Yeah.
and we'd post flyers all over the place, my classes. I found a place to teach.
Wow.
studio that I leased out from the person who owned it. And I started handing out flyers and giving talks and just trying to any way I could promote myself. At the time, there was not the social media that there is now. So I did it all by hand and mouth and copy. And, I would go to schools when parents would pick up their kids, and I would hand out flyers in the local area near where I was teaching and say, 1 free class on the flyer, come check it out. And back then, there were just a few martial arts dojos, schools in my county. Now I look back, I never could have done it this way now with all the social media and digital and everything. But there's like probably 50 different studios and schools and dojos in the area now. I don't worry too much about them anymore because I have my own clientele and I'm established in my own reputation. But that's pretty much how I got started. Saturday nights posting flyers and handing out flyers and taking jobs that I wouldn't even consider doing now, but just to get my name out there and my skills out there and show what I could do. And for a lot of free demonstrations and a lot for very little pay just to get the ball rolling. And that went on for probably 5 years. And, here I am. See, we're 2024 now, 33 years later. And, I've definitely got the ball rolling. I've got a clientele. I teach at schools, centers, private clients, businesses. I'm all over the place. I do a lot of mainstream, but I do a lot of autism work as well. And, I got started in autism through one of my students when I first started. One of my students' mom was a occupational therapist, and she called me up one day and said, "Would you be interested in teaching these 2 boys who are 9 years old? They have special needs." I didn't even really know what in 1991, 1992, I didn't even really know what autism was. It really wasn't defined that well at that time, 32, 33 years ago. And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And I started working with these 2 boys, John and Julian, and who are 9 years old. And I go, "Oh, this is pretty cool. I'm enjoying it. They're great kids. They really want to learn. They're really just very sincere about what they're doing." And, they had certain physical and emotional needs that needed to be catered to, but I was willing to do that. And I found out that, I never knew before that I was connected with them, and I connected with this. And as the more I got into it after these 2 boys, the more I connected with this demographic of autism and other neurodivergent physical life challenges, however you want to use the terminology, to be able to work with them. It was almost like I felt like I was home in a way. And so that's how I got started. And little by little, my reputation got around. Hey, Al Lorem. He's pretty good with, he's working in this area and working at that school and working with this person, and he seems to be getting results. And, my name got around, and then I started getting referrals and requests. And then I started promoting myself and saying, "Look, I've taught over at this school, and I worked with these people in this organization." And they look and, check my references. And before I knew it, I was really entrenched in this demographic.
I love that. And I would just want to point out that people that work with people on the spectrum and like children with special needs in general have to have like a special spark and a special touch with them. Because the thing is that if you're not very sensitive to how sensitive they are, it's easy to kind of disregard that and push them in a way that'll turn them off to learning. So I am so glad that your career went in that avenue and that you were able to make a difference in so many children's lives. Like, I can only imagine how many children you've taught over the years because you've been doing this since 1991. That's a long time. That's 33 years already. I'm 40 myself, but it's like, you have an amazing career, and I'm sure that it has made a difference. So with that being said, since beginning your practice in martial arts, where have you noticed a difference in yourself? How have you changed? And then how have you seen those children change after they've been practicing with you and took up the art of martial arts?
Well, what I've noticed in myself is, my confidence in who I am and my purpose in this life is gone through the roof. I know now my purpose. I know that I can connect with kids and teens and adults on the spectrum. And then, I'm not saying I'm perfect and I don't connect with everybody. There's nothing that's 100% of the time. But I really feel like I have a gift, and like what you said, Marcy, the perfect word you used was being very sensitive to each person's needs. And for some reason, I can read and connect and feel them in a way just by their communication, and not always verbal, sometimes bodily, just physical communication as well, knowing how they're feeling. And to me, in my interpretation, that feels like a real gift that I have, that I'm able to read them in that capacity. So what I've noticed about myself is that I have that ability to connect with them, and I'm not saying it's always easy. It's not. I've had, I've taught thousands of classes to students on the spectrum, but I'm talking, when I say on the spectrum, that's a wide umbrella. I have visually impaired, I have people with Prader-Willi, I have, all different learning processing conditions, and we all call it autism. And, but there's more specific names. However, I seem to just really can relate to them, and that goes back to, you asked me about my childhood. That goes back a little bit to my childhood, I think, almost hereditarily or genetically, because my dad was a pediatrician. And so he worked with kids, he was old fashioned, old school. He used to make house calls, which they haven't done in many, many years. He would carry his black bag and go to people's homes. And we're talking 50s and 60s back then. Now that this is totally unheard of, the doctors probably don't even know what that is these days, but certainly people, patients and, people, you don't get that kind of service anymore. So I used to go with him on his house calls. I wouldn't go in. I'd kind of wait in the car or wait outside, in the waiting room. But I would go with him a lot, and I just kind of picked up on my dad was very, very sensitive to working with kids. Obviously, that was his livelihood. He was a physician, a doctor, and chose to be a pediatrician. So I think that has something to do with it as well. And but what I've noticed also is, I feel so much more confident in myself, in knowing who I am and my purpose in life, like I said, and just knowing that I have this just amazing opportunity to make a difference in not only the kids, but I have a lot of teenagers and 20-something. Like this morning, I was working with two of my private students. One, the student that I told you I got started with, John, who is 9 years old, I'm still working with him. He's about to turn 40 in July. I've been with John for 30 years. And then I was working with him privately this morning. And then I had another student this morning who's on the spectrum. Her name is April. She's 36 years old. I still work with her. She's an amazing martial artist. She's really good. She's like if you give her one thing to focus on, she's like a savant. And she's really good physically. And I've promoted her, and John as well. I've taken both of these students through the levels of rank, which is the belts. They started out as white belt, yellow belt, blue belt, green belt, purple belt, third degree brown belt, second degree brown belt, first degree brown belt, and they're both black belts. They're my two black belt students. And they're real. Yeah,
That's
they're really
amazing.
amazing. And April this morning had her gi on, had her belt on. We do self-defenses. I have her kicking, blocking, punching, defending from all kinds of grabs, pushes, working the nunchaku. We work what's called the bokan, which is the wooden sword. And then we do our fitness training. We do some weights and some abdominal work, some core work, and that's our session for an hour. And we do that every week. And April's been with me for 20 years. John is a little more chill, shall we say. So he doesn't do quite the assertive things that April and I do. And, I just cater to the emotional makeup of the students that I have.
I love that. And then a lot of our kids on the spectrum and like with special needs in general, they really enjoy a routine. So I know that if you come up with a routine that they're going to follow every time that they have class, it's going to be like, they're going to feel comfortable, and then they're going to, I guess at one point they end up initiating, right? Depending on the level of functioning of the child. But yeah, like I can just see how it's very, appealing to them. I know that my son would probably enjoy something like that as well, because he's very physical. One thing that did pop up in my head is that sometimes our kids they don't know when to distinguish when to like defend themselves, right, and like when not to like hit in general. Like, have you found that there's you have to have like a specific class or like a specific discussion with them about when it's okay to use these kind of things and when it's not?
Absolutely. That's a really good point. And not only is that a great point for someone on the spectrum, but I have to emphasize that in my mainstream classes too, because I have, little young boys who are not on the spectrum, and their moms are telling me they're throwing uppercuts in their, on the playground. And so we've had some pretty serious discussions. But yeah, like if we're throwing, I know the makeup, the emotional makeup of most of my regular students. So I know the conversations that I either need to have or don't have to have, because I know that will not be an issue. But I will say, when we're throwing like cross elbows or hammer fists or something like that, or, hook punches, I'll say or they're pushing me in class when I come at them and they're redirecting my force and energies to protect their body. I'll say, I'm the only teacher that you can push, or I'm the only teacher that you can throw a technique at like that. I said, it's not appropriate in the, when you're out there with your friends, family, aunts, uncles, grandparents, or, schoolmates or anything like that. So yes, I've had that discussion many, many times. And, I had it in my mainstream class. I have one class that I do on Tuesdays, which is a preschool where I do little martial arts for 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. And
that's so cute.
Yeah, they're very cute. Very, very cute. And, they want to, and I'm really clear about how or when we do this only in this class. And I let them know, I said, you have teachers and parents and guardians that will take care of you at this age. And this is only for practice in here. And in fact, right behind me, the school posts, feet are for walking, not kicking, and hands are for holding things and eating, not hitting. So I go, just look right behind you. And there's these big graphic posters. So yeah, it's constant emphasis for sure.
Oh my goodness. My brother took Taekwondo, I think, for a couple of years, and he made it to yellow belt, I believe. It was here in the city in New York, and I remember he was being bullied by a kid in school, and he's not a person to like hit, but he, in that instant, like I guess he was like frustrated, and he kind of went like he hit the kid kind of like here, and the kid just fainted. So I had to go pick him up from school. He must have been like in kindergarten or first grade, and I was just so embarrassed. But we definitely had that conversation. I'm sure the sensei had a conversation before, but it's definitely good to also reinforce it at home, because obviously you're in the session with them, but then like parents, when you bring your kid home, like reminding them of, these techniques are used in this situation and maybe shouldn't be used outside unless you're like in like real danger, which, you know, you would have somebody to take care of you at the time. But that was such a sweet story. So can you tell us, besides what's Julian and April, is there another success story of a child, like, let's say, that came in like super shy and not really wanting to practice, and then like now how they've changed after practicing with you for whatever amount of time you've been working with them?
Absolutely. Tomorrow I'll see a student. His name is Ben. He's 25 years old now, just turned 25, because I went to his birthday party. It was a big deal for him. His mom threw a nice birthday party at a restaurant.
Aww.
And anyway, he started with me when he was 13, and he was working, he was come with another student of mine, and we were doing it at this girl's house. Her name was Victoria, who was a student of mine at the time, and they were friends, and he was invited over there. And when he came to the door, Victoria had this big dog with a very loud bark, and he was very sensitive to dogs and loud noises, and he just ran back into his mom's car and said, there's just no way I'm going to do it. His mom's, he went into an emotional meltdown. And so I said to myself, and I probably said to Victoria at the time, I said, I'll probably never see him again. I thought that was it. Well, turns out his mom called me maybe a week later and said, you know what? Why don't we do it at my house? Because I don't have a dog and he'll feel a lot more comfortable. I said, okay. So Victoria, Ben, and myself, by the way, I call him Bean. His nickname is Bean, but his name is Ben. Because when I first started with him, I'd say, okay, are you ready to do the move, Ben? And he'd go, Bean. And so it just stuck. So I never, in the last 13 years, probably you could count them on one hand that I've called him Ben. I always call him Bean, and his contact in my phone is Bean also. And yeah, so anyway, Ben, Bean. So I thought I'd never see him again. Turns out he's been with me 13 years. He's an amazing martial artist. He's got a spinning back kick like you won't believe, a roundhouse kick that's like, I want to say, I'd like to say all world, but in autism, it's definitely all world. And he throws elbows and hammer fists like you wouldn't believe. Anytime I grab him, push him, he knows how to defend himself. And so he's a real success story, one that I thought I'd see was there for a fleeting moment and gone. And 13 years later, I feel like I'm a part of their family. I know the family well. Like I said, they invite me to his birthday parties and Christmas gifts that they give me every year, very thoughtful. And, I know the whole family well, and they become a part of my larger family. So that he's an amazing success story. But,
I love
to be honest with you, Marcy, all my longstanding students are success stories in their own way. They've persevered. Yeah. They've trained. They've allowed me to work with them. They've taken what I've given them and integrated it into their movement, and look forward to seeing me every week, as I do look forward to seeing them. And, it's been an amazing journey for me, and and it continues on. So it's like, somebody asked me recently, what if you were, if you believe in reincarnation, and I'm not getting into anybody's belief system, but people talk about if you were reincarnated, who or what would you like to come back as? And I said, I thought about it for a little bit, and I go, there's billionaires out there, and there's, Tom Brady and, great athletes and all that. I thought about it, and I go, nah, I'd like to come back as me, because I mean, I love what I do, and I can, I put smiles on the kids' faces, and it's so tender and so real and so sincere. I wouldn't want to come back as anybody else. I got a great wife. I got a great son. I live in a beautiful area of California, and I'm earning, a living at doing what I love to do, my passion. I'll come back as me.
I love that. Al, you know what I just thought about? Because I was thinking about Karate Kid movie, of course, because that was a big thing in the 80s. Yes. Do you have the kids compete in competition?
I do not. You're talking mainstream or autism?
Whichever kids that you have that are part of your dojo.
Right. I do not do any competitions. I don't encourage that, really. Reason being, I personally have competed. When I was in my heyday physically, shall we say, age-wise, chronologically, I competed in many tournaments. I competed in when I was living in Florida prior to moving out to California. I competed in state opens, local opens. I competed in national world championships, the U.S. Open. And, I found through all that competition and getting my, getting beat up a few times or a few times more, and then putting it on a few people as well. But, I just found that, it was very sport and competitive oriented, almost like a sport, like a football type of sport. And, for me personally, I didn't want to really reinforce that. I wanted to reinforce and develop the person, so to speak, and not about winning trophies and having to beat on somebody else to feel like you're a winner. I just wanted each person to evolve in their own capacity, however quickly, slowly, or methodically that would be, and to develop the discipline, the self-confidence, the belief, the concentration, all that. And that's what I try to channel into my students with autism, is a little bit more belief, stronger concentration, fitness, definitely fitness. I'm big into fitness. I'm huge into physical fitness, and but I know my students, and I know how far I can take them before, each student is different. If you met, as you know, Marcy, if you met one autistic person, you've met one. There's similarities, but each personality is definitely different, and everybody rolls differently. So that's why, like I was saying earlier, in the word you use, that is so key, being sensitive, that sensitivity to each person. And so I don't really encourage the competitions. And, and if they say to me, if I have some students that say to me, well, I'd like to compete, I can help you. I can train you. I've been there and I've done that. I did that quite a bit, but I'm not about that. I'm about, the development of the character of the person, and I love that. So that's where I'm at as far as my teaching goes.
That's awesome. Because, I'm a teacher as well. I'm a special education teacher. And one big debate in the autism community, well, in the special needs community in general, is like whether we should let our children compete, right? And there's people that are proponents to it, like, yes, let them compete like everybody else. And then there's people that are against it. And I feel like, I don't know, like if the kid, like, I feel like we should leave it up to the children. If they want to compete, then I love that you're open to training them, but like forcing them to participate in something that might be like too overstimulating, or, whatever the case may be, I feel like it would do more harm than good in that instance. But I know that my son takes swimming classes, and in the swimming, they do meets. But the kids decide whether they want to do it or not. If they want to participate, they get invited. And if they want to go, they go. And if not, they don't. But so it's so cool to hear like your experience with it and how the children have developed, and the fact that you have longstanding clients that you've been with for like basically forever, like their whole childhood plus teenage years and adulthood, which is amazing. And the fact that they still, work with you is awesome too. So do you feel that there's any, and I think I know the answer to this because I feel like I know you pretty well so far, but do you think there's any children that are not a good fit for martial arts, for like being taught by you or in martial arts in general?
Well, that's a, I think with the right teacher, and, nothing is 100% or universal, but I think the vast majority of kids would benefit with, and I will footnote this or preface this, that with the right teacher, again, that word of being able to read your students, being sensitive, and also, that as you know, being a teacher, the teacher has to be, their heart and passion has to be into it. And if they're just kind of going through the motions, it's never going to work. So what I would say is I would give most kids on the spectrum, and then there's different levels of functioning. And, I've had many students with behavioral issues, and I do the best I can with them. And when they're in a class environment, when I have, let's say, 6, 7, 8 kids, maybe even more, I've had at times who are who have some form of autism. And if I have 1 or 2 that have behavioral issues, it makes it really challenging. And they may feel a little like they're not getting their needs met at the time because they need a lot of attention. So I do a lot of private work, and and that comes into economics too, whether the family can afford to, hire a martial arts teacher may not be their first priority. We want to pay the bills first, and then, then we go from there. But I've had some students, mostly younger, that have behavioral issues that just could not do the class because they were couldn't focus, couldn't concentrate, were moving too much, didn't, wanted to almost take control a little bit of the class, say, I want to do this, and grab my equipment, and couldn't sit still or stand still or do what was required to do when we were doing specific movements. But that's, I want to say that's more the exception, definitely more the exception than the rule. And so anyone who is willing to even take a look at it, and I've had many resistant students in the past that they didn't want to do it initially. It's I kind of analogize it like you plant a seed in the garden and you water it, and the parents suggest it, and the teachers suggest, you sure you don't want to go to class this week? Maybe you want to go. I've had many students that have been resistant initially, and with positive encouragement have enmesh themselves in the class eventually. It may take a week, it may take a month, it could take a year, but have come back and have done really, really well after their initial concerns. I teach at a camp for special needs in the summer, and I had a girl who was, gosh, how old was she? She was probably at the time, she's still with me, she's a student of mine, who was about maybe at the time 7 or 8, and I was trying to get her to do moves with the rest of the campers at the time. And we're going back to probably 2016 or 17. So, about 7, 8 years ago. And I couldn't get her. She was very sweet, but she would just sit there and didn't do one move. Couldn't get her to even lift a finger. Well, I get a call from the head counselor at the camp the next day and said that her name was Lily. Her name is Lily. Said, Lily loved your class and wants to enroll in your regular class. And I go, what? I go, it can't be the Lily that I'm talking about, that wouldn't do one move, wouldn't even look at me. And every time I walked over to her and was, kind of giving her the best of my best to get her to engage a little bit, wouldn't even budge, wouldn't look at me, wouldn't lift a pinky. And I go, "Are you sure you got the right person?" I said, "Yeah, that Lily." And so I said, "Okay, well, have her come to my class." She came to my class. This is probably, like I said, 2016, 2017. Long story short, she became an awesome student. She's still my student. I work with her privately once a week. She's now 15 years old, almost 16, and a sophomore in high school. And there you go. I mean, it was, I tell this story a lot, quite honestly, because when I think about it, every time I think about it, I'm so blown away that it was this person who wouldn't do anything and turned out to be my most loyal and faithful student.
That is one of my favorite things about our kids is that, like, at first glance, you think that they're disinterested in whatever you're teaching and they won't give you eye contact. I have kids that sit like with their back turned to you and you think they hate the class because like their face is like, you're getting nothing,
Right.
nothing. And then all of a sudden, like at recess or maybe during lunch, they tell you exactly what you were teaching them, which is like amazing. So a lot of the time our kids like, they get visually overstimulated, so they won't look at you, but they're still listening and absorbing everything that you're teaching, which is something that I like to remind parents also, because like I feel like, especially for, like the school where we came from, like in the 80s and 70s and 60s, it was felt like as a sign of disrespect if you weren't getting eye contact from a child. But definitely, I love that story. It's so cute and so inspirational. So I wanted to ask you, what made you write the book? Because like obviously you're living it and you're teaching these children and you're making such a huge difference. But what made you want to put it down on paper?
Well, I thought about it and I said, what I'm doing, to the extent of what I'm doing, is very unique. And it's been a long and incredible, awesome journey. And I don't use those words, those two descriptive, incredible, awesome, loosely. It really has. I mean, I think for my journey, that was the reason that one of the reasons that those words were created, because I've gotten to work with so many incredible students on the spectrum and other neurodivergent special needs for such a long time. And I have so many stories, incredible stories, and so many successes where I've seen the kids and teens and young adults grow and blossom and be able to learn martial arts and throw techniques and do techniques and defend themselves and feel more confident and safer and learning how to use their fine and gross motor skills more effectively and coordinate themselves. And I just felt like I had a very passionate and unique story to tell that very few people on the planet get to experience like I've experienced in my own world here of in my own livelihood. So I said, all right. And, I always liked writing. I liked writing in college. English was my second major in college. And I took a public speaking class. So I liked public speaking. So I liked everything about literature for many years. But I never envisioned myself, writing a book until when my son went away to college. I had an empty nest, so to speak, because I only have one kid, and I had a lot of time on my hands. And I said, I just started writing. I said, this is a good opportunity to tell my story. And then COVID happened, so I kind of put it on the back burner when we were all trying to figure things out. And then once things started to open up again, I got really serious about it and said, I'm going to get it published and and edited, and I'm going to have to do it all myself. It was all at my expense because nobody knew who I was, and I never, I'm not a writer by trade, by profession. And I put it into, the best that I could, the best story that I could do, and got it edited. I forgot a lot of my grammar in English, and that's, I got help there, but I put it together, and, I'm now working on my second book. So I hope to get that out. I don't know, I would say by the end of the year.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's also about my work that I'm doing in this demographic, in this world. It just gets more into more stories, more information, more methodology of what's been successful for me. And I really feel like some of my methodology is universal to other classes and other teachers in other areas. The way I've approached my practice and my teaching. So I want to get it out there and tell my story and let people know that how awesome and beneficial martial arts is to people on the spectrum, how it can really, really benefit in so many ways, from self-esteem, socialization. I work with the kids linguistically, so teaching them independent life skills. We talk about that, especially my private clients. And, I take the full body, the whole picture, and really want to develop on every phase and facet, not just self-defense. That's just 1/8 or one sliver of the pie. It's a big one, but, because that's what I do, but all the way around, well-roundedness. And I really emphasize that because I really feel like there's a really strong need for that. And I want to see the kids in their own capacity be as successful as they can be and be as functional as they can be.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that. So tell us, Al, where can we purchase the book? And do you have a website where we can
absolutely
purchase directly? That way you can get the funds,
Yeah, you can purchase my book on Amazon. It's on Barnes & Noble. The best place, though, to purchase it is on Amazon. And if you just reference my name, Al Lorem, Loren, and then martial arts on the autism spectrum, it'll come right up. And my website is alloremmartialarts.com. And if you just Google my name, Al Lorem, or Al Lorem Martial Arts, my website, and a whole bunch of information will come up on me. But my website will come up.
Awesome.
And it'll see, people can reach out to me that way if they so choose. And if they ever have any questions, and I will email them back and about anything,
Great.
So I have a website. It's, it's got some photos on it. It tells what I do. It lists some of my clients. It's got some testimonials. I'm in the process of, I think I'm going to revamp it. It hasn't really been, reworked in a few years, but it's getting time. So yeah, but I'm definitely out there in the digital world. I don't really do that much Facebook and Twitter. I mean, I've done Twitter, some tweeting and all that, but I just probably going to get a little bit more into that. But anyway, I'm starting to do some podcasts like with you. Thank you, Marcy, for having me. So getting the word out there and, and just taking it a day at a time. But
I mean, you're a great guest. I'm going to tell you right now, because sometimes I have people on that request to come on, and it's like pulling teeth to have them, share and talk about different things. But you can tell how passionate you are about what you do because you have so much ease, like the way you speak about it and the way you relate your stories and all of that. So I love that, Al. So wait, do you have an Instagram or not yet?
I don't really do much on Instagram. So yeah, okay. I have an Instagram, but I'm not really posting on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right, guys. So I am going to end the episode here. Al, I want to thank you so much for reaching out and for being patient and coming on the show. I appreciate all your work that you've been doing with our kids. And I just really, really enjoyed the episode today. I want to tell I'm going to end the episode how I usually end it, which is follow me at Comadreando Pod on IG. And you can follow Al on his website, and we're going to drop the handle below. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to send me a Comadre-Gram via email at marcy@comadreandopod.com or slide up into my DMs. Please visit our website, www.comadreandopod.com, to read our latest blog posts, find out about future events, and get your official Comadre merch. Thank you for spending time with your comadre and your compadre. Al, you're a compadre now.
Sounds awesome. Great.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Al, can you say bye to the audience?
Thank you, audience, so very much. I hope you got a lot out of my interview, our interview with Marcy. She's awesome as well. And any questions, go to my website, allorenmartialarts.com, and email me, and I'd be happy to get back with you. And if you so feel moved, you can purchase my book again on Amazon, Martial Arts on the Autism Spectrum. Thank you.
Hello.
Perfect.
Hello, comadre.
Hey, comadre.
Do you have a minute for comadre time?